Hi, my name's Sam, and I make videos sometimes, although not as often as I should. But I'm making this video right now because of a story, I guess. The story is that I've had an obsession with Donnie Darko since the first time I watched it when I was like 14 or 15 maybe. And I'm 23 now, and in the Halloween of 2017 my friend was having a birthday/Halloween party and I had no costume. And for the past few years I wasn't really making much of an effort for Halloween, but I decided this year I was going to make the effort. I was going to try at least. And I've always wanted to go as Frank from Donnie Darko, the talking bunny, but the costume is like crazy expensive, and so is the mask. And to buy them together is a lot of money too, so I thought, I can be creative when I want to be. Maybe I can give making this costume myself a go. Maybe I'd save some money, I'm not sure. And maybe it would be a fun project at the end of the day. What I also decided to do was to document it. So the first thing I did was watch a ton of videos that other people made about how they made the mask or how they made the costume, and I'll link those in the description because without them, half of what I did in this video I wouldn't have had a clue how to do it without watching those first. But before I go into this, I want you to know this is not a how-to, because ultimately I consider the outcome of this project to be a failure. This video is more of a how I did it and maybe what not to do. So first I'm going to list everything I bought and how much it cost. So from a local art shop I bought 2 acrylic craft paints. They were kind of a grey colour. They were €2 each because they were on sale. I also bought Das clay. It was €5. From the local Euro shop or Poundland or whatever you'd call it, one of those shops where you can buy things quite cheaply, I bought acrylic black and white paint. They were $1.50 each. An artist brush set, that was $1.50. PVA glue, that was also $1.50. Kitchen foil, $1.50. Super glue, $1.50. And I bought this mask, that was $1.50. I bought it because it seemed a bit Frankish anyway, so I thought maybe it would be a good place to make a start. I was wrong. And just for clarity, I bought this alien egg, but I didn't use it. It was $1.50. And the reason I didn't use this alien egg in the end is because I found the next item I'm going to list, but I'm still going to include it in the price because I want to show my mistakes too. So the next thing that I bought was from a supermarket. It was a Kinder Joy, and that was €2. I have to admit right now I only used these because I saw someone else do it in their tutorial and I thought it turned out really good. From a charity shop, a local charity shop, I bought this woolly jumper. The lady I bought it from actually gave me a discount on it, so it was only €10. I bought it for the white woolly inside that I used later for the chest. From a website called thecostumeshop.ie, I bought this fluffy dog costume. It was €34 and the shipping was $5. And I bought this because I thought it would be a good base for the costume. It has a few extra bits like the tail and the ears, and it didn't come with the gloves, but I thought I could maybe turn the feet into makeshift gloves. So the total for all of this was €72. So did I save much money? Considering buying a full costume at the time would have averaged at about €180, including postage, and that's on the lower end. I saved some money, and I decided I wanted to spend the money on something that I might be proud of once it was done. But I was wrong. I was very wrong. These are the tools or the equipment that I already had in the house, so I didn't have to spend any money on these. A sewing kit, white and grey thread, Work Zone glue gun, Work Zone heat dryer thingy, I'm not quite sure. Hair dryer, I didn't end up using it too much, I used the heat dryer thing instead. Rusty wire cutter thingies, scotch tape, rusty screwdriver thingy, nails. I had these things I was calling new nails, but I settled on just regular nails in the end, and I used those to secure the teeth in. Scissors, newspaper, and garden wire that I used for the ears. also loo roll. Okay, so this next section is about the costume. I started the costume by cutting the fur out of the coat. This was going to be the base for the chest. I had a bit of trouble cutting the tag off, but once that was done, it was pretty easy. I then cut the ears, tail and feet off of the costume. I saved the feet because I would use them later for the gloves. Then I cut the hood off of the costume so I could attach it separately to the mask. And I'm just going to say now that I don't know if that was a good idea, because there was a bit of a gap between the hood and the costume after I cut it off, and I wasn't anticipating the gap would be there, and it kind of just didn't look great after the costume was finished, but what can I do? I then decided to cut the hood and arms off of the piece as I didn't need them, and I cut the chest piece down a bit until it was more of a square shape, just to be able to deal with it a bit easier. I laid out the chest piece on top of the costume and then cut it to shape. I drew down the middle of the piece with a pencil just so I would know where the zip was. Because the zip was on the front of the costume, I had to cut the chest piece in half, which wasn't ideal, but there was no way around it. I was then going to sew the two pieces onto the chest of the costume. Because I had cut it in half, I could still work the zipper and get in and out of the costume if I wanted to. I could tell you that I sewed the chest piece myself, but it was actually my sister that did it, because I thought I'd mess it up if I did it myself. So thank you, sister. Here's me showing the progress on the costume. Chest piece is finished, no tailor gloves anymore, and no hood. Then it was time to attach the feet to the sleeves of the costume to create the gloves. I turned the costume inside out, and again my sister did this bit. Thanks again. She hot glued the gloves to the costume for me. She hot glued the whole way around, but later on I cut some of that away so I could slip my hands in and out of the gloves when I had the costume on. I originally wanted to give these gloves fingers too, but I had to keep them as mittens because I only had 2 days to make this costume. I know I should have had more time, but it's done now. What can I do? Then I had a snack. This was the most important part of the whole process. Without this snack, I could not have continued. And also because I had to empty out the Kinder Joy. That bit too. Then I made the mask. Fair warning, this is not a good tutorial on how to make the mask, and you'll see why later. The mask first of all needed some holes to create the ears from. We heated up the screwdriver thingy and poked holes into the mask with it. This was not my idea, and nor did I do it. My sister's boyfriend did this, and it was his idea, and it worked extremely well. If I had done this myself, I would have probably tried to stab it with a knife or something, which would have ended terribly. I then used the garden wire to create the frame for the ears. This took me quite a while, but it worked out okay. I was using reference images of the mask on my laptop, which is just out of shot, to get a general shape for the ears. Then I used the tin foil to fill the ears in. Again, not my original idea, I saw it in some other tutorial for the mask. I then cleaned the Kinder Joy, cut it in half and used the Scotch tape to hold it down. This was the base for the eye shape. Again, I stole this from another tutorial, but I may have mentioned that already. Then I mixed some PVA glue with water. I think it was around a 50-50 ratio, and I started to paper mache the mask with strips of newspaper. I wasn't very good at paper macheing as it turns out, and my sister's boyfriend did a majority of the paper macheing after I realised just how terrible of a job I was doing. After the paper mache, which I should have let dry properly but didn't have the time. We did the same thing with the loo roll, except this stage was definitely also to start shaping the features of the mask too. We then applied more paper mache on top of the loo roll because why not? And used the hairdryer again. We then applied some paper mache to the back of the ears and put some padding down in the mask to make it more comfortable to wear. The mask was really uncomfortable on the inside. and we paper mache'd it down. We used the heat dryer thingy to dry the mask, which wasn't actually a good idea, because it made some of the newspaper start to peel away from the mask, probably because it was drying far too quickly. I then used modelling clay to lay down the features on top of the mask. Let me just stop here for a minute. At this point, any sane person would ask themselves, this mask is going to be way too heavy with clay on top of it. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should just use more paper mache. But I didn't ask myself these questions at the time when I was doing it, because again, I had seen someone do this in a tutorial. Important note for anyone wanting to do this, the clay turns out really heavy. I don't know how it worked for the person that I watched in the tutorial, but it didn't work out that way for me. It was really heavy. I decided to just use the normal nails here too, and not the U-shaped nails, to secure the teeth in place, which I also made with the clay. Another completely stupid thing I did was start to build up every feature with the clay. And why did I do that? Because I had so much clay, I just decided to use it up. This would later on make the ears way too heavy and they would crack at any given chance. Another note, you want to keep the ears light. I then used the acrylic craft paint as a base color. I have to admit, I painted it while the clay was still wet. And apparently you shouldn't do this, but I didn't have the time. I painted the back of the mouth and nose holes black, and as you can see here, I started to use the space heater to try to dry the paint quicker, and it actually worked quite well. I painted the eyes white and then mixed the black and white acrylic paints to get a gradually more dark grey colour for the rest of the mask, and I would use a mix of light and darker greys to accentuate the features that bit more. I painted the back of the mask too. You can make out here me watching one of my favourite YouTubers on my phone. This does not compute. I actually used a tea bag and water to create a stained look on the teeth. I just painted a few layers of tea water onto the teeth and it turned out really good. I think this was an idea I had on the spur of the moment. I think. You can see here the ears started to crack and I had to use some super glue to keep them held together. Something I forgot to document was drilling holes above the eyes so that I could see through them. I'm sorry I forgot to film that. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, that'd be nice. We then hot glued the mask to the hood, and as you can see, the mask was way too heavy to stay in place. It kept falling down. So we had to glue the hood closer to the mask to create less room to slip. And that was it. Here's some pictures of the costume. My friend actually had a competition at the party and I won scariest costume. So why do I regard this a failure? The mask is just way too heavy. It turned out really terrible too, and I should have given myself more time for the project. The zipper at the front of the costume wasn't ideal either because it broke up the fur chest and it just didn't look too great. All of these reasons are why I would say it was a failure and why I kind of shelved this footage for a while. This was back in October, so skip ahead a few months and I had just watched the new Star Wars. And I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but a certain character gives a speech in it about the importance of failure. And I started to think about this costume again. Although I didn't like the outcome, I really actually enjoyed making it, and I enjoyed filming making it as well. And I had the footage, so why shouldn't I put this video together and have some fun with the idea that it didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted it to? I still did it. Shortly after the costume, I ran a poll on Twitter asking people if I should destroy the mask or keep it. I really wanted to just go out in the back garden and destroy this mask. It had given me so much grief, but the poll had spoken and I decided to keep the mask. But there was something else that the new Star Wars movie taught me. And I can say this because it was in the trailer. In the words of Kylo Ren, let the past die. Kill it if you have to. It's the only way to become what you were meant to be. Thanks to anyone who watched this.